Good afternoon. Welcome to Two Harbors High School. My name is Jay Bel Castro and I have the honor of serving as superintendent. Welcome to our school and braving the elements as you came out this afternoon. I've got a clipboard. The representative has asked that you sign in. I'll be sending that through the auditorium. If you need to use facilities outside to your left, third door on your right, we'll find the restrooms on the level. So welcome. At this point, I will turn it over to our representative.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming out on a dreary Sunday, but it's great to see everybody. So I am Natalie Zeleznikar, your state representative for District 3B, and my colleague, Roger Skraba, is here from 3A. So we're doing a little different. Last time, Senator Hochschild was able to be here, but his schedule didn't work this time. So Roger and I thought it'd be great because he represents all of Lake County, and I only represent Two Harbors and then some of the surrounding townships that come into here, and then up by Brimson, Hugo's, that kind of area. So we thought it would be great to have Roger and I here. So, but I'm thrilled to be here, and I'll let Roger say hi, and then we'll go into a little bit of question and answer.
The traveling Slovenians.
Yes, not singing.
No, 3B, 3A. You know, we were at a function, and they go, hey, 3B, over here, you know, 3A and 3B got to get a picture together, you know. So we do represent similar people. My name's Roger Skraba. I'm from Ely. Thank you, everyone, for supporting me if you did. If you didn't, you can learn. I'm hoping to get you on my side because I will run again. Driving here, one of the reasons I was a little late, we had 6 inches of snow when I left Ely, and it was, the state didn't plow from Ely to 2, but the state plowed from Silver Bay to 2, and the county had everything clean, nice. So,
yay.
Yeah, you guys had, it was pretty nice, but still had a break trail a lot of the way. I've done a couple of these over towards Ely. I'm trying to get up to the district that I represent includes all of Lake County except for Two Harbors and a little north, and then all of Cook County, all of Couchiching County, a fair amount of St. Louis County, a bunch of townships, and everything north of Cook. Basically everything north of Cook in St. Louis County is what I represent, which goes to the Canadian border. All of Couchiching County, and then 2 townships down in Itasca County. And it goes all the way over to Beltrami County. So there's a lot of area, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of issues, similar issues. The big stuff that we will talk about a little bit, you know, like local government aid, county aid, those sort of things that are important to northeastern Minnesota. So, I don't know, where do you want to start? Thank you.
Well, if we take things local, one of the great things that both Roger and I worked on right away is there was transferring some land in the Two Harbors area that we had to work on that right away. And that has been done. And Roger can speak more on that, but you know, the local government aid doing that, and then we all know Highway 61, there's a gap in the funding to complete that project the right way. So we've been working on many of those topics right off the bat. And Roger, you can speak about the land transfer, what we had to do with that piece.
So can you hear me? Yeah. So what happened was the state acquired all that land in your Agate Bay. I'm not familiar with names. And what happened was it used bonding to get to it. And when you do something with bonding, to get it out of bonding, you have to unravel it the same way it came in. So the reason I'm really involved is I'm a member of Capital Investments, the bonding committee, and generally speaking, you know, Chairman Lee, Fu Lee, I like Chairman Lee. He's a Democrat. He's still a good guy. You know, He's very helpful, he's accommodating, and the DNR is involved in this one. So I called Bob Meyer, Assistant DNR Commissioner, and said, hey, what's going on with this? Where are you guys? What do you need? I said the key here is Two Harbors just wants to use the land. And it's important to get into Two Harbors' hand instead of our hand, the state, because the city and the county can find better use of it than the state. And he was like, oh please, I'll give it to you. You know? So it wasn't a really hard lift. The only thing he wanted to make sure was that the parking lot and everything that is shared right now with the state of Minnesota, and I believe the city of Two Harbors for that landing and that picnic area, stays the same. And then the land that's not part of that. We included it in the bonding bill, which we both voted for, which is a kind of a big deal for northeastern Minnesota. A lot of our party didn't vote for it. Farmers and central Minnesota have different views of bonding than what we do. We're used to bonding. We don't have the tax base that they have. We don't have the number of people, the number of parcels. We have Cook County, I believe it's 7% is private and 93% are public. Cooch County is not quite that bad, but there's a lot of public. St. Louis County has a lot of public. Lake County, obviously, you all know there's a lot of public land. So when it goes to put a trail in or put a landing in or doing something where the public benefits from it, some people believe that that entity, that area should pay for it. You know, and I'm doing my best to educate them down there, saying this is just like a wastewater treatment plant. You know, a wastewater treatment plant in the metro area is $45 million to fix it, to get it going, and they come and ask us for money, you know, and the people asking are the ones that voted against the bonding bill. And I was like, guys, what aren't you seeing here? You know, that it's so big, these projects get so big that an entity can't do it. The state has to help. A bigger, higher power has to help. And with the federal dollars and the state dollars, we're trying to match our bonding money with federal money and any other funding that's out there. We are very fortunate. I believe, do you guys IRRB? Yeah. You get funding? Yeah. And that's a big deal, you know, and we match those dollars all the way through. So, and the goal here is to, one of my goals on capital investments is to show these folks, you know, why we're voting the way we're doing it. You know, it's important to you because your taxes would be even higher if we were to do all these things. And yes, you benefit from a trail here or a landing here, but it's not just for you, it's for the state. We share everything with everyone. And the district that I represent, it's one of the committees I went to, they asked me, tell us about a legacy or a bonding project and what your district is famous for. You know, and one guy said, you know, we got the big ball of twine, you know, we got the ball of rubber bands, you know, and I'm sitting there like, I got the North Shore, the Boundary Waters, Rainy Lake. I mean, what do you want? You know, and they're all like, what? And I'm like, the area that I represent is as big as New Jersey, New Hampshire, Vermont, any of them. They're all about 8,000 square miles, 10,000 square miles. And that's how big the district that I get to represent. And so it's very diverse, it's very interesting, and so far in 4 months we've been there?
4 months.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I wanted to say, you know, Roger's on the bonding, sits on the bonding committee, which has been great because he can be a resource. He's been a resource for me, and so it wasn't hard then to write House File 82, which was for Two Harbors to transfer this land, and so that will be able to be done, and I was able to author that bill, and that'll get done to help Two Harbors out. And then we're working to see what we can do as we move through. Bonding hasn't been done yet, but to look at Highway 61, my position is it benefits the whole state. There's not anybody that's not coming up Highway 61. So we don't want to see the business community shut down for months and have this thing get delayed. So that discussion on bonding is going to continue on.
Thank you. And the bonding bill for the transfer of the land, it's going to go through because there's no dollars attached to it.
Correct.
It's no money. It's just, it has to get undone through the bonding process. So.
When that land transfer happens, is there any money earmarked for the removal of the old coal dock?
No.
Okay.
No.
There's no dollars on there right now. Because I think the key here is just to get it out of the state, and then what the community decides, then you come back and ask for bonding money in 2 years. And if that is part of your thing, let me know ASAP. And the reason I say that is we travel, because I'm on bonding, capital investments, we travel around the state starting in August, and we do 3-day stints. And we'll go 3 days here, 3 days, to look at projects in the various communities.
You are familiar that the old coal dock is there, and that's been one of the sticking points is eventually whoever owns that land is going to have the liability of and the expense of having to remove that.
Right.
It is hazardous.
And not knowing enough about it, but I know how the DNR works, and I know how the legislature works. I don't think they're trying to shirk their responsibility. I think they're just, if the DNR gets so overwhelmed, so if the county or the city decides it wants to do it, then we will carve out a way to make the funding available for that and use it as your request for bonding.
Yeah, because I mean the expense of removing that, you know, if it was to be municipally funded, would be kind of overwhelming.
And that is the key to bonding. That you walk right into it. It's, you know, why would the taxpayers of Two Harbors or Lake County have to pay for something that everybody benefits from? So that's truly how bonding works. Highway 61, real quick. I was on a Highway 169 task force out of Ely, so I got to know Dwayne Hill very well. And one of the snowstorms driving up from St. Paul back to Ely a couple of weeks ago, I called Dwayne because I had some issues with Masabi Trail and the right-of-way, a bike trail, and we were resolving that. And I asked him, I said, hey, how is that Two Harbors project coming? What's going to happen? And we spent about 35 minutes on it. All I can tell you is the state is very aware of they don't want to close it 4 years in a row. That is not the goal. They don't have the money to close it once, but probably for sure twice he'll get closed. He's trying not to do the 3. So that's all I know when we talked about it, because it's a big deal for everybody. For the businesses here, but also on the other side they go up the shore, because if it all gets delayed by the time it gets up there. Question?
Having the traffic lights, I believe there's 4 or 5 of them in town, having those aligned probably is like 90% of the issue.
And
that's a no-brainer because they're already there. But they should be green and let people get through town if they want to get through town.
I think that's what Dwayne, or the engineers, when they do this, I believe, I don't know if you've been working with it, if there's a core group that's going to be, I know when we do big projects like this, over where I'm from Ely, I was the mayor of Ely, when we did things like that, we always got a citizens group that could access this to get the Chamber of Commerce, everybody's 2 cents.
All the state of Minnesota lights were just replaced the last time.
Oh.
So they're all current technology. They weren't, but now they are.
Yeah, and I would
now
think,
they have turn lanes, so.
You know, because I told him, I said, are you going to bypass anything? And he said no. He said probably because it's so wide, we might take parking away, and they might just close one side and tear it up, and then have traffic, because moving traffic is almost harder than trying to keep traffic in its way. So that's for the experts to do. I'm just.
But it's 5 hours of problems on Saturday going one way, and 5
Correct.
hours on Sunday going the opposite way, and there's 168 hours in a week.
Right.
I'm hoping that the state is going to be concerned because so many people use it, besides the citizens that live here. All of you are affected every day who live here, and so that's why we're trying to make sure that this is top of mind awareness, which it is. They're well aware of it, of the Highway 61 concern for the people who live in Two Harbors and surrounding areas, as well as how many people come up here for biking, fishing, camping. You name the topic, it is a destination place up here on the North Shore. So you're very well heard. I wanted to make a point as we start off this time. We'll talk about a few topics and then leave time for questions at the end. But just to say, we've had some successes. There, you don't ever hear about bipartisan support. But Roger and I have had, many opportunities to have that at committee level. And while we're in the minority party, we're still working to try to bring forth issues, that we think reflect the people who live in our communities. And, right now we're going to probably have flooding in multiple parts of the state of Minnesota. Who knows, today we might have hit the snow record because the white stuff keeps falling. With that said, we passed a bipartisan bill to restore funding so that we don't have to come back into special session, because that fund is going to get depleted. For emergency use. To help assure that these communities that need protection with flooding have the emergency funds that they need right away, because last time they ran out of money and they had to call everybody back into special session, which is just counterproductive because the communities need access right away. So that's a success.
Representative Gene Pulowski, who's been there forever, and he's the person that started this in the early 2000s, saying, let's put a lot of money in that, and just, because if you have to raise more money, you can bond to fill it, or just use it. That way you don't have to keep coming back. So the idea is that I think we put 45 million in this time, and that should get us through this flooding and natural disasters for the summer. And then we're going back to session probably next February. That's what it sounds like. So this year was January 3rd. Next year is February. But another thing that we, where Natalie and I work together, is bonding, where we reached across the aisle to help. And there's a group of us, freshmen, that are doing that just because I don't want to spend too much time on this, but does everyone know what an omnibus bill is? It's the dumbest thing, the stupidest thing we could do. And what happens is all the bills you hear in committee, the chairperson holds them and then puts them into one bill at the end and then goes. Rather than vote on them and give them a thumb up or thumb down, they all get included so that when it comes to the floor, there'll be something in there I really want, but there's something there that I can't even fathom voting for. It's just something our district doesn't need and doesn't have to have. But in order to pass it yours, you have to vote for it all. I'm not a fan of it. I mean, if there was a better way to do business, I would support it. And knowing that, I'm on the Natural Resources and Environment Bill Committee also. And our omnibus bill is coming up tomorrow.
Yes.
And I'm more than likely voting against it. He has, Chairman Hansen has so many, he has a lowland conifer bill that takes all state lands, forest lands out of logging, you can't cut any more spruce, tamarack, white cedar, anything out of this. And it's kind of like, what? And I spent the week, last week, calling loggers in our area, and they were all just like, what? Why? What's LP? Everybody needs spruce for better paper and that. And it's like, and then they banned peat mining with it. And it's kind of like, why? Why now? What's the deal? And we never got, in the committee, we never got any of our questions answered. And you won't get the questions answered now on the floor because they also took the Energy Committee and put it onto this omnibus bill. So now this thing got from like this big to this big.
Correct.
And
I read it all yesterday, and it was really delightful
600
reading.
some pages.
But one of the things, and another reason why, while there's some good parts in it, to piggyback off the concerns that we have, Roger stated, the other part that I have a great concern is why we would be, when we have a $20 billion surplus, why we would be increasing fees for the state parks. State parks are going to have increases. Every fishing license, every hunting license, every fee you pay for licensure for your kayak, for your boat, for your canoe, is all going up. And it's going up in monumental amounts. And it's, you know, it may not hurt some of you in this room, but it is going to hurt the people that we are supposed to be helping, those who are lower income. Lower income people, we're trying to get to use our outdoors. We've tried to be encouraging fishing with kids, fishing with middle schoolers, high schoolers, college students, camping, every single thing that is stuff you can do that used to be things you could do reasonably for family activity in Minnesota. We are taxing, or if it's not a tax, it's called something else, an increased fee. And I'm against that. And I believe Roger's against that, and you know, we'll be voting no because it doesn't make any sense that we would hurt Minnesotans right now. So,
Bob Myers, if anyone heard his name, he's the assistant DNR commissioner, and you have Sarah Strawman, the commissioner. And Sarah's real busy, like hyper busy, and Bob is the same, and Bob's my language, his administrative assistant, I call it Natalie, his handler, tells Bob where to go and when to go, what to do, and you know. But between Natalie and Bob, I try to get as much information, you know. And I'm like, Bob, what's with the fee increases? What's going on? And you know, he's like, you know, we got to do something. And I'm like, Bob, it's not a good time. I mean, you have a surplus. I mean, just the view, the look. I mean, I understand you want to fix boat landings. I understand concrete's not getting any cheaper, and asphalt's not getting any cheaper, and paying the wages for the DNR employees to work, they need to go up in wages. But you have a surplus, and you can use part of that surplus for a couple years to get us down the road to where we can manage an increase. We can walk it in instead of one big end. I won't say the governor, but someone has the $17.6 billion spent already. So they can't really go into that. And if there's anything that's frustrating right now is knowing that that money is off the table because it's already spent. And it's just like, I mean, I had a person in the grocery store this morning. He taught a geology class in Ely, and these kids were all like, you know, climate change folks and everything, and he took two of the kids, he said, go in the corner and count to 1 billion. Just start counting to 1 billion. And they're like, what? Just go in the corner. It takes 32 years to count to 1 billion. That's how many seconds and everything. And these kids were, you know, and he was trying to tell them how big 1 billion really is. And when we say there were 17 billion, it's like, oh, it's 17 billion, you know. We want 200,000 for a project, and that's big when you're a city, when you're a mayor. And then when I'm also on, you know, capital investments, the bonding, and that kind of the numbers we're seeing. I'm used to 1 billion now. I'm used to millions. I'm used to 45 million, 165 million to clean up a dump. These kind of numbers get thrown around, and then you break them down and you find out where all the dollars are going, and it's just, you know, and then you have a whole state. So when I'm talking to the DNR assistant commissioner, I'm like, is there some way you can get some of those billions to help offset the public, the people, for now, so that if we have to raise these, we can do it incrementally.
And it doesn't seem logical when you talk to Minnesotans and you talk to people in northern Minnesota, central Minnesota, southern Minnesota, that in a time when the costs you have to go to the grocery store have went way up for everybody I talk to, whether they're single, married, young families, older families, they're not getting any relief at the grocery store that we go every week to get groceries, get supplies, wherever you get it. Dog food, cat food, horse food, you name it, it's higher. So to keep increasing costs for Minnesotans by the things that we like to do, which is outdoor activity, to me is a slap in the face. It's a continual slap in the face and a disregard for what we do in our way of life up here, which is fishing, hunting, camping, going to state parks, and being outside. And to increase fees at a time when we have record surpluses it's inexcusable in my mind. And it's only going to hurt, like I said, the people who are lower income. It's going to mean they're going to have to choose to go camping or stay home. Go to the state park, stay home. And if the mentality, because we deal with millions and millions every day, is that $5 doesn't matter, we need to get back to straight math in Minnesota and teach everybody why $5 still should matter, right? $5 should matter. And when you have to pay these costs, what that means. And choices. And so it isn't a matter of if we have the money, we've had the money. We had the money when we started this session. It's what are our choices for Minnesota? And that's the crossroads we're probably at right now, is what are the priorities and where are the choices going to be?
Does anyone here listen to Garage Logic? Anyone have? And so Marion O'Neill was on the other day, and Marion sits next, right, real close to me, and she explained the budget, you know, from a 5,000-foot view, so everyone can just kind of, and I won't get into details in the budget, but there's a $12 billion one-time surplus. So there's $12 billion that came from the federal government. It's been accumulating and everything. So that's $12 billion. But every year for the last 3 years, we've been overtaxed $5 billion, $5 billion, $5 billion, and we've been spending it without reallocating it. So what's happening in this budget, just to put this into perspective, our budget, and I can't remember the numbers, Marion's so good at them, that $5 billion that we're, in my opinion, that we're being overtaxed because the budget for those other years was this much, and they were getting $5 billion in receipts, more than what they had already allocated to spend. So you have $5 billion every year left over, and it's like, okay, do we give it back? What do we do with that $5 billion? Well, this group, the folks that are in charge right now, are spending that $5 billion. It's gone. And they want to spend 3 more. So they really want to go up $8 billion more. And again, $1 billion is a lot of dollars. So there's a lot of things that can be done with it. But it's not going into the things that we use up here, that we believe in. One of the things, and it's coming up for a vote, and it's called the paid family leave, you know, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I've gotten letters from both sides, huge amounts. It's about a $4 billion lift. So of that $5 billion, it goes into that and it's gone. But you got to raise the next year $4 billion, and the next year $4 billion. So it's kind of like, is this, and the small business owners are the ones that are going to be hurt the most, and that's where I've heard from the most, because their employees are going to be gone. And there's, as everyone here knows, there's not enough workers to go around. So if you have 5 workers in your shop, and 2 of them leave for whatever purpose, oh, I'll just go find 2 to fill in while these 2 are gone. There isn't. So the other 3 have to fill in along with the owner. And then people come to the business. How come everything's not done? How come this isn't this? And I'm not saying that we should disregard the family leave thing. I think we have to just stop, and instead of spending $4 billion on something, oh, other states do it. I don't care. I don't care if other states do it. We have to see how can we afford it. We're going to keep raising. it's scary, and I don't want to be negative. I'm trying to be as positive as I can up here today, but it's so scary because there's people and businesses that are leaving this state faster than we can give them a reason to stay here. And when you
I think on that note, Roger, I sit on workforce and I sit on health finance and children and family, and I've heard the paid time, it's family, FMLA is the government program, which is Family Medical Leave Act, and the federal program allows for 12 weeks, and it just allows 12 weeks, but it's for employers that are 50 employers or more, full-time employees. So the seasonal or discount are not included, and part-time employees are not included. We're used to that formula in Minnesota, and that allows union places and or private business or nonprofits, whatever their status is, to figure out, you know, they have all different benefits, whether they have paid time off, vacation, sick leave. So when you're taking that 12 weeks, whether it's to have a baby, have a surgery, take care of mom or dad, sometimes it's a combination of paid time or unpaid. It could be all paid, it could be all unpaid. Either way, now as it's being written, is they're going out the state of Washington, it's modeling, and I broke down the modeling to look at it, and that state doesn't have nearly the aged population we have. So we have a lot of seniors in the state of Minnesota who need care, and so they've looked at a state, they're assuming that this amount of people are going to take up to 12 weeks for caring for a parent, but that state has far fewer people who are 65 and older. And when you look at the baby boomers coming, that's just one example of time off people could take. And so I've been bombarded with emails, phone calls. School districts, counties are very concerned that they're going to have to raise taxes because the mandates, if that mandate goes through, there's no funding to formulate that, to fund it, except raising taxes again. And at a time when we are recovering, businesses are recovering from the pandemic, and so my position has been, look, it's not that there's not some pieces of this that make sense and are understandable, but I think we need to hit the pause button and delay this. This is not a time to implement a brand new government program. We are implementing children and family, a new division, a new government department, and also this paid family medical leave division, 2 new government programs at a time when we don't have enough staff at the government level to even audit what we do. So my position is that this is very bad timing and short-sighted, and we need more time to figure out the impact for the small businesses, under 50 employees. Seasonal workers are a big thing on the North Shore, as it is with everyone else. And the other part that is a big flag to me is the actuary study that determines the effect, the financial implication for today and tomorrow won't be done until October. So why would I pass a bill and vote yes for something when we don't even have the true fiscal note and the actuary study until October? So I said, look, right on the merit of that, it's a deal breaker because we don't have. They said, well, we're just going to go on good faith. Well, that's not a good way when we're talking billions of dollars for the state of Minnesota. So, and you know, that's my position on the paid family medical leave. I think it needs to be rethought. I don't think it's ready for prime time yet. We need to really see that actuary study in October and have more discussion next year and not rush this through because the implications are going to be monumental for business. And we already know the forecast. The forecasts for Minnesota do not show increased revenue for businesses moving in. It shows quite opposite. It shows we're going to have a reduction. Businesses have closed and they're not coming here right now. And so we already see projections that our income to the state are coming down. So if we've just increased services by votes and programs and we don't have the money coming in, there's only one other way to get it, and that's increased taxes. And so that's the issue why I believe it's short-sighted. While there's good pieces of it, I think it needs to be fine-tuned. And I don't know why we would increase a program in Minnesota to exceed the federal program at a time when we are in a recovery zone. It seems like it's poor timing, and the bill hasn't been refined to the degree it needs to be. So,
or institute. You know,
right.
And I agree with everything that Natalie said. And I just read an article this morning about Lake Street to 31st Street, Hennepin Avenue. It's called Uptown. Maybe you all remember what Uptown was. You know, this big, vibrant area. The article started off saying, if you haven't been Uptown lately, the number of businesses that are operating can be counted on one hand. And that is not the Uptown that I remember. So, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to resurrect that. They have all the people. They have everything down there. And they can make things happen. And they're still struggling. So and if you put another impediment onto a small business, where you have to fund this whole family leave, and you have to fund another government program, it's not we're not ready. We're still recovering. They're recovering from other things other than the pandemic. They also have the George Floyd incident that they're still recovering.
Now, the paid time off, one of the other issues that affects small businesses, because this is modeled after like an Amazon size. Amazon, Target, big companies. And so when you look at that implication on small businesses, many of our small businesses don't have a human resource department. The owner is the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, and everything else. And so these mandates are going to really monumentally impact small business and their ability to stay in compliance. And if you're not in compliance, then the small business gets a fine. So I personally, in every part of my being, feel that this is just not the time for Minnesota to embark on such a monumental thing that could change the landscape for everyone. And when we look at simple things like, we have construction that happens, what, 3-4 months in Minnesota? These contractors are just like, how are we supposed to deal with this language when an employee can take 12 weeks off for medical and 12 weeks off for family? And then how do we prioritize? Do we give them vacation first, or does the state supersede vacation and they get to grant as many leaves as they want? How does the school district handle this? How does the county handle this? How do businesses handle this? Nobody has any answers, which really concerns me. From an operational level, how are we going to implement things that sound good on paper? There's so many unintended consequences that are presented to me every day that create the reason that we have to have far more discussion. So
the one comment, you have to pass it to find out. That is literally what has to happen here, and that is not how I went down there to do business. I will not do business that way. And I've been blessed. I'm a fishing guide when I'm not doing this kind of stuff. And I've guided actuarians. They're a different lot. Those folks really think things through. And you have conversations with them. Everything is for real. And it's very concrete. So I couldn't imagine an actuarian saying, oh yeah, go ahead and pass it, and then we'll give you the data you need. That's not how they think. They work on facts and facts alone. And what they produce is what the truth is, what's gonna happen. And if they're not giving us a number now, there's a reason. There's a reason why the Democrats don't want to give us a number.
And recovering from it is worse. You know, it's easy to say yes, to give something, but saying yes isn't always the right answer. And so as easy as it would be for me to say yes to everything, there are consequences to the decisions we make today, not just for me, but for our future generations, your kids, your grandkids. And so I have to look at it through that lens, you know, is what are the intended and also the unintended consequences. One of the things, I don't know, Roger, you want to talk about another topic?
Yeah, go ahead.
Answer questions?
Yeah.
I can't see what time it is, so.
It's 4:10.
It's 4:10, so
Yeah.
should we take some time for questions?
My name is Mark Ryan. I'm a businessman, and when you're talking about the family and the medical leave program, I've read the bill, I've worked the numbers, and I respectfully disagree with your assessment. I think it's probably the best deal that could happen to people who don't have these types of benefits right now working for any size business. And the cost of it, if it's split between the employer and the employee, could be as little, depending upon if you're making $30,000 a year, or $20,000 or $60,000 a year. It's $10 a month apiece. Now this, for the school district from which board I sit on, if a mother is out working or a dad is out working and their kids get sick and they have to make a decision whether or not to leave them and let the kid go to school and expose everybody else to illness, including a teaching staff, which there's a big shortage of. Or if you got a business and they decide that they're going to stay with the kid, get sick themselves, and come to work because they don't have any ability to offset their loss of wages, it's going to spread the sickness around the business. And
so if I sum up, I'm just going to repeat for people because it's hard to hear.
Okay.
Because I have the mic, I'll just say, I think I've heard you, and I'll give the mic now to Superintendent going forward, but if I heard you correctly, I think your statement was that you respectfully disagree with what what we stated up here on paid medical leave, and that you think it is a reasonable rate, it's 0.07% that would come out of the employer, and or the employer can decide if they're going to pass those costs on to the employee. And I agree with you that that cost may not be that, it may seem like a reasonable amount. Where my concerns are on different pieces, is that when you're running 24-hour operations, and I've heard from police officers, I've heard from school districts, I've heard from 24-hour operations that run healthcare hospitals, nursing homes, assisted living, when they have to run 24 hours a day. So there's nothing in this bill that limits how many people can be out. And the fact is the language is very broad. It can be that I met you 2 weeks ago, but you're now as important to me as my brother. So you qualify for me to help you under this proposed federal law. The terms for family are very broad, and so the complications of it aren't just the person that's out for work, whether it's a teacher, the highway plow driver, the nursing assistant, the nurse. Who is going to fill the shift to teach, to drive bus, to care for somebody at the hospital, and all the other pieces? Because it's exceeding a system we already have that the federal government has of 12 weeks. We're going to 24 weeks, plus all the PTO that people accrue. And so that's the issues when you look at the unfunded mandates. The cost to do replacement isn't anything the district's going to have. The costs that come with it, beyond the employee out that's contributing through this payroll tax, there's also, employers are telling me they're going to have to staff double. They're going to have to budget double, increase the cost of supplies to cover that, because we're in a workforce shortage. So that's the piece that's one of the pieces that's an issue.
Yeah. Is this mic on? Oh. Yeah, again, I would respectfully disagree with you. If you got a sick employee, let's just talk the illness side, not the personal leave for others, the family leave part. You got to replace that employee no matter what you look at.
But the federal law allows for...
No, it doesn't, not for anybody that's part-time. And that's all kinds of people that work up here on an annual basis. So those folks don't get to take advantage of the federal regulations. When you look at the way the people have put together this bill in Minnesota, number one, there are protections on the employee side. Yes, there are protections also on the employer's side. There are qualifications in order to be able to meet the ability to take this leave. And the probability that that many employees at one point in time, unless we have another pandemic, are really small if you look at the statistical distribution of the use of programs such as this, including FMLA.
I think the actuary study will be interesting to see what it says in October. And then we'll see if you're right. I mean, we'll see if those predictions are right. But I appreciate your question, and you make a good point.
I just want to say that, first of all, I've been a senior executive in a multi-billion-dollar international corporation. I do consulting for a lot of companies. So, and part of the issues we've had have been human resources. And we've had to put together plans for these sort of circumstances on a huge scale, including one company that I worked at where we had something like 6,000 franchisees, small businesses all over the world. And I'm telling you that somebody needs to take a look at what you're talking about on your side of the equation, because the numbers don't add up. either way. And the exposure to businesses is worse if people don't have time to stay away from either school, in our case that I'm concerned about, or the small business and have the other people get sick because they're going to work sick. There's a bigger issue there for employers than there is on the very small amount of money that it takes to provide coverage to this huge group of part-time employees who have been left behind with these laws.
I hear what you're saying.
That's all
Roger and
I want to say.
Yeah, let's take the microphone and grab another question, and Roger, you want to share the mic?
Yep. He's going there.
Okay, I can't see with the lights, so, okay.
I wanted to talk about the sanctuary bill that was just passed, the sanctuary bill for transgender affirming care. I think we need an age limit. I think it's child abuse to push chemicals on kids. We don't let them drive till they're 16. We don't let them vote till they're 18, or have alcohol until they're 21. And this is a life-changing decision. There was just a study in Sweden that showed if you gave testosterone to a under 16-year-old girl, that it actually will not allow their spine to fuse properly, and they could have a walk with a hump. I mean, to me, it's child abuse, and I can't believe our state passed it without passing laws for the kids. I mean, I'm a mom, I have 3 kids. I'm a pharmacist, I know the drugs, I understand medication. I know what it does to our body. I think you have to be old enough to make that decision yourself. And I think you have to also, I don't know what Minnesota is doing about the payment for such decision. It's $1 million for one surgery. I don't know if you watched the documentary, What It Is to Be a Woman, but if you watched any of the documentary about all the changes that happened, and Sweden has stopped their program right now to halt it because of some of the spinal issues with females and stuff. And I just think you have to be old enough to make a decision. I think we need to protect our children. I'm a mom, I need to protect my children. And besides that, there's one other point. I do think we need to stop taxing Social Security in Minnesota too.
We had a bunch of amendments the night that bill passed, and I want to say one of them was we tried to limit the age to 18, and it didn't pass because, again, after 18, it's not my wheelhouse. It's not any of ours wheelhouse anymore. That's an adult making an adult decision. And the intent of the bill was other states are taking away the rights of young people to change their gender. And Minnesota wants to be the one where you can come and get anything you want done. And not to stir the controversy pot because it's been signed, but House File 1, the family abortion bill, whatever you want to call it. I can't remember the thing was.
Yes.
What we tried to put amendments on that, giving ages to allow the age difference, and it just went through. And the same thing happened here. It just went through because they're more concerned about the person, whether they have the knowledge or the ability to discern what they're doing for their life. It didn't matter because at that moment in time, this 13-year-old doesn't want to be a girl anymore and wants to be a boy, and we have to respect that. And if one parent says no and one parent says yes, they can come here and it can be taken care of. And it isn't the fact that it doesn't happen. I mean, I respect anyone that can work in this field and help these people through their myriad of issues because everyone's confused as you're growing up. I mean, one of the representatives said males their brains don't develop till 25, and that came from the other side of the aisle, and I'm like, what? You know, and it was like, and they have studies in that, and like when young men go through puberty, they forget everything they had. They learned, they were great up till puberty, and then after puberty, they had to relearn everything they did again. That's a Mayo study somewhere. And all these studies were being thrown around, and we were all trying to find, you know, what does this have to do with this transgender sanctuary? And Representative Finke, who when asked, how are you going to pay for this? It's in the bill. No, how about if we asked, how are you going to pay for it? And I never heard.
I think it's medical assistance.
Right, I mean, up to a point, but yeah. And it was really hard for me to listen that night. I was trying to stay engaged with the whole discussion, everything that was happening. But what happened was the bill was just presented like, we're going to do it, we're going to pass it no matter what. And then when you ask really technical, deep questions, we couldn't get answers. At least my feelings was we weren't getting the answers. But the money one, you were listening.
I believe if they're on medical assistance, the state will be paying. We're a sanctuary state, so we will be paying. And
Medicaid?
Medicaid, yes, medical assistance, Medicaid. So, you know, for me, listening to the topic, I voted no, and it wasn't a hard no, because to me, the key word is children. We're talking about children. We're not talking about what tattoo you're going to get, an ear piercing, blue hair, my color hair highlights, how you want to dress. We're not talking about pronouns. This is life-altering surgeries. And I say that because I've had these life-altering surgeries. I had breast cancer. I had a double mastectomy. At 46, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, I would wish the fact that you have to worry about not just the breast cancer, but you have to worry about sepsis. And I've looked at these surgeries that these kids have to go through. I've watched the videos, and it is painful. I've had a double mastectomy. I've had skin grafts. I've had all of it. And I think, my God, if they had sepsis like I did, and had to go through that packing wounds and pain, I can't imagine a 12-year-old, a 15-year-old going through what I went through. And then, what if you change your mind? I've listened to many kids say, look, who do I hold accountable for this decision when I changed my mind? I don't want this. I'm 21 and I'm trying to go back. And you can't get your breasts back. You can't get your genitalia back. You can't reverse hormone blockers purely, 100%, without huge consequences. And so, to me, I just sit there and wonder what we're doing to our kids. We're talking children. And if the children that you're around are like any of us in this room, I'm sure you changed your mind more than once as a child. And I was glad I had people that were influencing me and said no. And helped me in other ways than maybe what my idea was. Because my best idea and what I wanted done on my behalf, if I was ruling the world as a child, I wouldn't have made good decisions all the time. And so I think parenting is hard. We want to help our children and we want to do what's right for our children. But the thing is, with this gender affirming in the sense of surgery and hormone blockers, to your point, I've had pharmacists call me. I've had doctors call me and say, this is just devastating. This is lifelong implications. My position is let these people decide. Let's help them in youth, but let them decide when they're 18.
Thank you. Like Natalie, I voted against it for the kid reason. That was my big issue. But I want to say, prior to this vote, we also had a vote that, and I'm trying to, there's so much stuff going on down there. I voted with the Democrats on the bill to stop the gender, if you were going through it, the state was stepping in, could step in and say, or someone was going to make you go back to be the way you were.
Conversion therapy.
Yes, conversion therapy. And I voted with the Democrats on the conversion therapy because, again, it's about kids. It's not about adults. It's about kids. And like the abortion issue, someone has to speak up for the people that can't speak. And it's a simple word for me. So, thank you.
He's got, oh there, you got the mic.
I have a question for you. If you guys don't mind sharing the mic. First of all, I appreciate your vote on conversion therapy. I appreciate it because it's been the APA, every psychological association has supported that, and I appreciate that you listen to the experts on that issue. My name is Todd. I'm from Two Harbors. I'm also glad that you're both paying attention to brain development research and, you know, when the human mind develops, that has implications for a lot of things, not just the issue you're talking about. And I hope you pay attention to that same research in a lot of other policy areas. I had a question, and I think it might be of interest to our audience. On the school lunch bill, you two diverged. You took different votes on that. And I guess it might be interesting to hear you kind of spin that out, you know, Natalie and Roger, on what led you to your votes on that bill.
Sure, I can talk about that.
We're in a school. You know.
Right. Well, in the concept, we had a lot of debate on this, and just for you, in a big picture thing, it was, I think we spent $4 million on the school lunches. I'm going by memory because there's been a lot of bills. But the premise was we have more people. We don't want hungry kids, or they're going to not be good students. If they can't eat, they can't learn. Got it. Make perfect sense to me. I come from an education family. The piece that the reason I voted no was the amendments that were offered were not accepted, which would have said, okay, they're saying the data is 1/3 more kids need school lunch. Let's increase the safety net by 1/3 more. Let's just allow that. And then take 2/3 of that $4 million and deal with some of the other issues we have. Whether, I don't care if it's Social Security taxes, eliminate it, help fund nursing homes, we got teacher pension issues, the list goes on. But why would we put all of our eggs in our basket if we're saying right now on Social Security taxes, I believe they should be eliminated for all people, but in the school lunch thing, I said, well, if that's the case, and right now we're arguing, do the rich need to have Social Security taxes eliminated? Why are we not following the same logic? If I can afford to pay for my kids' lunch, why am I not paying for it? It's like one modeling works in one topic, but then you go to the other one and it's not being applied, which made no sense to me. Because I think the district, and I had people say, we're going to be throwing away food. We're going to be throwing away food in the schools because they're not eating it, but we're going to do a lunch for every kid, breakfast for every kid. So in my mind, it was wasteful and not using $4 million the best way. Let's take care of the kids. And the other thing is, free and reduced lunches is there's federally funded money that comes from it too, and if we're not going to be filling out those forms because everybody gets it, I had many people saying to me, we're going to complicate our funding mechanism at a school district level. So that was my reasoning.
The bill came to us twice. First time, I voted against it. Second time, I voted for it.
It's really hard to follow those bills, by the way, but on the reviser's website, if you're really diligent, you can follow those bills.
And when you brought up the school lunch, I'm like, what bill is this? You know, it's like there's so many things that we do. And one of the issues was I met with a lot of superintendents and a lot of school board members, and they did not want this thing passed. They just didn't want it passed. And for everything, the reasons that Natalie had said. And when it came for me to vote on this one, I had asked a fair amount of our district people about it. And the boots on the ground people were by far in favor of saying, please support this, please support this. So sometimes I vote not the way I see the world, but how you all get to me. I know we got issues coming up right now, you know, HR. I worked for Jim Overstar for a summer, and everything is House resolution, and I can't get it out of my brain. 1983, and it's still stuck in there, but House File, HF, House File 100, is going to tax all of us. That's going to be a tough vote, but the marijuana bill. Go ahead.
Since we have the superintendent here, I mean, I'm a former teacher and have worked in 6 different school districts, you know, in my past work history. And I know that probably the worst headache is to try to figure out who's still on the free and reduced lunch list. How many kids have money in their school account? If you total up the cost of every school district that has to do that calculation, every quarter, because those numbers change. I mean, it's probably a cost savings, is it not?
Well, here's the, and you know, the problem.
We're not losing the federal dollars, but
No, we're not. But the
not
issue
not
is, well, one of the premise that the folks that wrote the bill were trying to sell us on was the fact that it's shaming to a person to say, hey, you're on free lunch, and these kids pick on the kids with free lunch. So now what's going to happen, just for instance, everyone gets to have a hot lunch. It's free. But most kids are eating the a la carte, the sandwich, because they don't want to have the hot lunch. They want to have a sandwich or a piece of pizza or whatever is in the a la carte line. So now the kids that were always in the a la carte line are still going to be in the a la carte line. And everyone else has to eat the other food. So there's still going to be that stigma that's still, well, you can't order from the a la carte. Kids are brutal. We don't know that. You've been around them. You know exactly. They'll find a way to get that message through. And we can change all the laws and we can spend all the money we want. This doesn't change. We have to fundamentally, and this goes into something way longer than, we have to fundamentally treat people differently. And starting way down there. And where everyone's the same. I mean, I was in church this morning and I watched a family of 6. And they were all probably 16 to 10. Big family. And there was a couple in front with a baby and an infant. And every one of those 6 kids was trying to play with the infant. The mask didn't even exist. You know, and it was fun watching these kids trying to learn to be with young kids. And for me, I'm watching that and I'm trying to figure out how can we make most people think that that's a good thing, you know, to have a child and teach it better, teach it to be more inclusive, to be loved, to be wanted, to be needed. And we're not getting that. For some reason, we're not getting that. And I don't know why. Maybe I'm going to be on a quest. I want to learn that. I want to try to figure out somehow we have to fundamentally change those, the way we're going to teach. Did you have an answer on the food?
Well, I appreciate Todd's sentiments there, and you know this was a big discussion. Natalie, I hear what you're saying in the fact Lake Superior School District was very fortunate to have an outside donor come in and to simply write a check, and this goes to all students that can't afford. What we also do, Roger, is that the shaming piece. I'm happy to say that isn't something we do, although it was something that happened in the past. And so back in the day, if you didn't have money in your account, you were given a sandwich and a carton of milk. Now, if you don't have money in your account, you go through and we'll deal with it afterwards. But to Natalie's point, I could talk a lot about other issues financially in the needs of the district. But I'm happy to listen, and I think we've got another question right here.
I'm very concerned for the state of Minnesota and the state of affairs that we're witnessing on almost a daily basis of tax refugees from a personal point of view and from a business point of view, where we have gotten to be and have the reputation for nationally of being one of the most highly taxed states in almost every way. We have taxes we have death taxes that are higher than probably 45 other states. We have income taxes that today seem to continue to grow, and one of my major concerns is in addition to the tax refugee component, we're seeing a brain drain. We're seeing people that have made a living in Minnesota who are approaching retirement, and they go someplace where their retirement income is not going to be so heavily taxed. We lose people that have been helpful in our, broadly speaking, helpful in our communities in every way, philanthropically and participating in everything communities have. And I think state of Minnesota, it's time to pump the brakes and talk about what can we do not to have another new program, but what can we do to hold the line And I'm concerned with how that surplus is being kind of mishandled.
It's all right.
Well, thank you for the question, and my position is that's why I believe Social Security tax elimination for all is what we need. Because here's the thing, we have data of the millions of dollars that are getting transferred out of our state. With these people, we had 27,000 leave Minnesota last year. And I've had people call that say, I'm a realtor, I've never had 3 people say for the reason they're leaving is the policies of Minnesota. They've listed their houses, they're leaving. Up on the range, up here, they're going. It's like it's gotten to the point where they're not willing to stay anymore, even for the love of the state. And so, you know, I think you make a very valid point, because it isn't just that the senior citizens, and maybe they have accumulated a lot of wealth. But here's the thing, when they leave Minnesota, their wealth goes right with them, and the community that has benefited from their participation in the community, they're the volunteers, they're the people that are showing up for benefits, they're in Rotary, the Lions Club, Kiwanis, churches. They are a fabric of our society that is monumental. And to lose them at the time they stop working is very short-sighted. And so that is a huge concern to me. And yes, are the costs higher for people that are younger too? But we're increasing, the state's proposed to increase a 5th tax level for people, another bracket. And on top of the fact that we're growing government by 30% right now. The budget's going up 30% in spending. So we don't see a migration here. And if that's the case, the taxpayers are going to pay higher property taxes, which I'm hearing about all the time, as much as just the cost of living. And if we don't have businesses wanting to come to Minnesota for all levels of business, small businesses, entrepreneurs, medium-sized, large companies, the burden is going to go on the taxpayer. So I'm going to be listening to innovations and everything we can do to help take that cost. That's when you have strong schools, is when you have a strong business community, because the tax rolls higher. Otherwise, the taxes can only be transferred to the individual. And that's a huge burden for people to pay, whether you're old or you're middle-age bracket or lower. And I believe there's a better way we can do it. So you can go to the next question, and Roger, you can answer.
No, really quick, I want to, one of the things I wanted to, when people come into my office and chat with me about like the school lunch issue, the paying back, I believe community. I believe communities will take care of themselves if the problem is known on these, yep. And I say smaller, the school lunch like in Ely, same thing happens. They put a thing out saying, hey, 15 parents didn't pay their bill. How much is it? Pay
26% of the people in Lake County, 26% of the students in Lake County qualify for free or reduced lunch. So it's not like a one-off. It's a significant.
But again, I think the community would step in no matter what, and they do. And almost all the communities.
So we should have GoFundMes for that?
No, and that's, but that we solved that issue. But we can use that other community to solve other issues.
I've written checks in my former community I lived to clear the balance of children that have, and they're not all riding the poverty line, by the way. No. Natalie, you brought up earlier that food costs continue to go up. I mean, this is something that's going to be appreciated by families at all income levels, not just the ones that are just, fall below the poverty lines.
And teaching staffs.
Yeah.
Right.
Very appreciated by the teaching staffs.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I understand. Let's settle them to ask another question so we can keep going, because we're getting down.
What was
4:40.
A quick question.
We got 20 minutes.
In light of the Liberal Party have a trifecta on a state level, and it just seems like everything that's being presented is just being shoved down our throats, and it seems like everything that the minority party and the conservatives are trying to add to bills or to discuss bills or to try to change, it just seems like it's a futile point. Nothing's happening. My question is, what else is going to come out of this legislature and out of our state government in the next 2 or 3 years, and what's it going to cost us?
I can tell you what's coming down the pipe this year. There's some big issues that are, elections have consequences, you know, they sound like a broken record. But, you know, when you have the majority, you do what you can. And generally, elections, when you mess with the election laws, you try to make it bipartisan. You try to sit down and have discussions how we're going to run elections. And we just voted on a bill last Thursday night. And there is no sitting down having that discussion anymore. This is what we want. This is what we're going to do. And it's frustrating. You know, quick to answer the question about taxes before, Minnesota enjoys, we got a pretty good gig in this state. Drive through North Dakota or South Dakota in the winter, they shut the road down. They don't plow. They just shut it down and you wait for your turn when they can plow it. Minnesota keeps working no matter what. We're pretty blessed. Our public infrastructure is pretty strong compared to others. And, you know, and it costs money, and it costs money to keep it going. Should we carte blanche it and just say, oh, that's what it costs, just keep doing it? We have to also work on the other side. And I'm sorry, I'm talking. I worked with the Democrats on a housing bill. I voted in favor of this big $300 million housing bill. And the reason that I supported, and I went to Representative Mike, anyway, the representative, the author of the bill, and I told him, I said, he goes, thanks for supporting it. I said, you know, I did it for 2 reasons. One, it is going to help poor people getting a step up in the world, in life. And I'm okay helping those people, because if they succeed, others follow, and it's a good, positive thing for our state to do. But mainly, I said, when you bring that $4 million or $40 million workforce housing bill to us, I'm going to say, where's the other $260 million? Because we took $300 million and put it into people who generally don't pay into the fund to have this housing. We're trying to help them. We're going to give them a step up. We want to help them. Can we help the people that are paying that? The people that really need workforce housing? If Two Harbors had a 30-unit new apartment building, we would have 30 new families potentially, you know, or people working, because jobs are here. You can go look around, they're here, that people want to hire them. All the other communities in my district, International Falls needs 15 welders for Green Tech. Grand Marais, they have housing. So I'm like, you know, hey, Mike, can you get more money for workforce housing for rural Minnesota? I'll support yours for the metro, for building, getting homeless shelters. I voted for that too, helping homeless shelters get money, you know, against my party. You know, things, I do things like that because I'm hoping they see that I'm willing to step across the line to help if they will come the other way. Kind of to answer your question, because right now it's a feeding frenzy into us from them. And I'm trying to do that, but
and he is. And Roger's doing a good job. But I'll let you ask him a question because we're going around. I don't know what time it is, but I want to respect all of your time. We're driving back to St. Paul today.
My name is John Ducott, and I live here in Two Harbors. Before I ask my question, we need some information. Where are we with the Social Security tax reform? Originally, the governor put it out to have approximately $10,000 write-off and below. And I have not heard anything else from anybody really where we are at that. We want the tax reform, the benefit reform we'll call it, because it is benefit Social Security, not an income. And where are we? Are we going to have anything come out of this? Where?
The question on Social Security tax, right? Okay, so I've already said my position, we need to eliminate it all. I believe that we'll see something. We have put it on the House floor, I think 3 times. We've called the vote. we've said we've all campaigned on Social Security tax elimination. Let's call the vote on the House floor right now. We've done a call of the House, we've called it, and they voted it down every time. And so the Senate has done the same thing, and the Senate has voted it down also. My suspicion is that, and on the House floor, I can just speak for being on the House floor, when we've been in debate on the House floor, some of the Democrats have said, we didn't campaign on Social Security tax elimination. And so there's a lot of discussion. I think where the discussion is right now is, what is the definition of wealthy? You know, is it that at $100,000 income, you don't have the right to have your Social Security tax eliminated? What is that? And there is a lot of different positions on that when you talk to people. And so I just said straight up, I said that campaigning, I believe you paid in once with Social Security tax, it needs to be done, and eliminate that once and for all. And that's easy.
What's going to happen, the compromise is going to be, like right now, I think if you make under 50,000 or 50 or under, it's not taxed. I don't know the number. So what's probably going to happen is, and the governor, there's some rumblings from his staff that it might make 100,000. It might. So if you make 100,000 in your retirement, you know, all your retirement, your Social Security that normally would be taxed won't be. And the biggest group that comes to me are people who have voted Democrat, who are retired, MAPE people, Minnesota Association of Professional Employees, state employees that are making, you know, with their retirement and their Social Security, they're making over 100,000 a year, and they're the ones saying, "Hey, quit taking that tax out. I want my money back," you know, and that is the biggest group that's making the most noise right now. And in government, as you know, the louder you squeak and holler, and the more people want to listen.
So we'll see.
I don't know what's going to happen.
Because when I'm looking at this, I look at Speaker Portman, I see Senator Dietzig, they basically got a ring in the nose of the governor. They're leading him around all over the place. So can we get to the point at least, if nothing else gets accomplished for Social Security, at least have the people that at the poverty rate and below are exempt from any of their Social Security
and I believe, to your point, I think that, yeah, and there's a big, they are now. There's a big group that are already exempt, a large group based on income.
10,000.
I think it might be 30. There's a number, but it's more than 10.
Because I haven't heard that.
Yes, it's
there
more.
It is that, because I've looked into that. But I think the bigger question is going to be, how much can you earn? Are they going to do an all? I don't know. It may be that it's not. But let's answer a couple more questions if people have it. Otherwise, we will let you go. Over. It's 4:49.
Yep. You're hopping around.
Let's take somebody that hasn't spoke, so we can get.
I think there's something to say that's important for a couple of topics to talk about. First of all, on the issue of the sexual identification things that are going around today. I sit on the board of the Human Genomics Engineering Company, and I think it's important that you need to bring into the equation, and I agree with you, that it needs to take a lot of time to get into this, and to the depth that may or may not be being proposed right now. But there's a genetic component to a lot of this, base fundamental genetic component. And that includes things that have happened over time regularly, or there are mistakes that are made when a human being is formed at the time of conception. And I think it's important for somebody to address those issues. And I haven't heard a lot of it, but that's just a suggestion for it. It's something that hopefully folks will look at, because some of these feelings that these kids have may or may not be correctable in the way that you think they should be, or whatever. It needs to be a more fact-based scientific look at what's driving them to feel that way. The other thing is with the school lunch, I can tell you I just looked at the latest analysis, fact-based analysis that came out. And it turned out that when they instituted an overall free lunch for everybody, regardless of income, that the most beneficiaries in terms of improving their performance in school happened to be that group of kids who were not on the free lunch program before. And when everyone was included, the kids who showed the greatest increase in their testing result capacity were those that were not on the free lunch program.
And I think history is going to show. If our test scores go, right now we have 50% proficiency rate for reading in Minnesota, depending on district. So if that happens, wonderful. I mean, we will, I don't know. I mean, we'll see what time, but I think we have 10 minutes left, so let's get to the back.
The other thing I want to say is, yeah, we have high taxes in the state, but with all the business activity I've been involved in, you get what you pay for from whatever you're dealing with, your quality of life, or whatever. And Minnesota has one of the highest ratings for quality of life in the country. In fact, Duluth was listed as the #1 destination for folks looking for a better quality of life over the last year or so. I just want to make sure those things were addressed.
Thank you.
Hi, I'll be very brief. I'll take very little time. I would like to do a commercial though, and you both know why. I'm Dan Schleter. I'm with Lake County Republicans, and Minnesota is way overtaxed, okay? But the reason I'm riding, incredibly overtaxed. The reason I'm rising is because this coming Saturday we are having a recognition banquet. We, the Lake County Republicans, and guess who we're recognizing? We're recognizing the two fine folks you've been listening to, okay? They will be there and they will be our only speakers, okay? It is a private event, but with a contribution to none other than Lake County Republicans. I would be glad to sign you up. So please, after we let these, our wonderful representatives head back to St. Paul, please see me. I'm right here.
Equal time.
Hi, I'm Rick Johnson. I wasn't going to ask a question, but I know Two Harbors is in the Iron Range, but I'm kind of disappointed to come up here. I haven't heard one mining question from anybody here as to what's going on in St. Paul with pro-mining or anti-mining.
Well, I signed on to a pro-mining bill, and you know, because I feel like the anchor pieces in our community support the entire community, whether it's Two Harbors, Proctor, Hermantown, and all the surrounding townships. So, you know, one of the pieces right now that we're hearing in the energy piece is a lot about solar, okay? On any given day, if you look at the Meso app, you will see how much of our energy is being produced by solar, wind, natural gas, nuclear, and it lists on. There's a lot of days we're in a negative on solar and wind. I look at it almost daily. And Minnesota has a lot of days that aren't so sunny here. We're not Florida, we're not California. So we have a huge amount. When you go with a 100% plan like we have with the energy for electric, well, I'm not opposed to electric, I'm opposed to 100% mandates. 100% mandates put a risk on us all for our way of life in the sense of how do you heat your home? What are the costs going to be to retrofit for our kids who are getting mortgages and houses? How are you going to retrofit your home that you may or may not have paid for, or your business, to meet the standards that they're putting out right now? And so, you know, while I think it's great, I'm not for, you know, lawn equipment, Zambonis, snow removal equipment, have everything be mandated that it has to be electric, battery operated. It's just not reasonable in northern Minnesota. So in the sense of mining, my position is I've listened at committee on solar panels. The ingredients in solar panels come from what we have in northern Minnesota. But we are going to get them from a company that's in Africa. And we are going to be dependent on China to orchestrate this. The very things we need to do the solar panels. We have bills in here on how we're going to dispose of them, how we're going to use them. So I'm thinking to myself, how is it that we're not leading the way? Because I believe the Minnesota miners have led the way. We have the best safety laws, the best OSHA laws, the best everything laws. And I can guarantee you that the Congo, where these things are coming from, are not doing child labor laws. They're not doing any of that. So if it's not good to do in Minnesota, then why are we okay getting the supplies from Africa with child labor? Doesn't make any sense to me. We would be having high-paid union jobs in Minnesota. So it is, to me, backwards. And so, you know, I think it's coming full circle, because Europe right now is going back to fossil fuels. They're not going to do this plan. And so it makes me wonder why. Are we going to just learn the hard way? We're not living in California and Florida where it's super warm. We're in a cold state. So we're going to have, and people are asking questions, so it's a good point.
So really quick, the state of Minnesota, if you have a state building, they help you with solar panels and everything. When you get north of Moose Lake, they quit funding. They quit giving you money for it.
It's Metro,
because it doesn't, the amount of sun doesn't equal enough. But yet we passed a bill making it mandatory that you have solar throughout the state. So a lot of times you sit back and you watch what's happening and why, what's going on. And I can go back to the mining. I had a meeting last Friday, with US Steel about DR, direct DR, I can't even say.
Direct reduction.
Yes, but and making it an ingot. So that process, they really want to, they want to invest in northern Minnesota. They want to make this happen. The regulatory process that's happening is MPCA, everybody signed off on it. They said, yep, use the same permit you have, no problem, everything's good, everything's good. And then it gets to this level, and right now they're like, here it sits. And it's kind of like, what happened? And 2 Fridays ago, or whenever, Saturdays ago, I was with the governor at, he came up to Ely with Grant to Vermilion Community College, and we went over the bonding project that Grant and I worked together to get in for the college. And I wished I had known that they were having issues with the governor's office, because the governor was at the grand opening of building the plant. He supports it. So there's somewhere in the system, there's staff that are higher up, the lower people that did all the numbers, crunching, everything, said, yes, you meet every standard. Everything is good to go. And, you know, they want to invest billions. They want to start hiring people in December and you know, in January. And it can happen. They're waiting, and we just can't. And as far as the copper nickel, I had Becky Rum, one of the most strong in my office. Becky and I could say we're friends, because I know where Becky's coming from. Becky knows where I'm coming from, and I think, and I do a lot of walking in St. Paul. I have a dog, and I take my dog for a walk every morning, 4 to 6 miles. And I do a lot of thinking as I'm walking, and one of the things I keep thinking about is, in Public Law 495, the Wilderness Act of 1978, there's a stipulation in there that gives the Secretary of Interior the right to get mining minerals out of the boundary waters or the area around it. They can just, we need it for national safety, done. There's no process, there's nothing, they can do it. And I don't support that. I don't want that. I want a process to get those minerals so that communities, I'll use this as an example. This building gets paid for by taxpayers in Lake County that do not send a kid here, to my knowledge, ever. But they pay for it. And you need that tax base to pay for this. That's just the realities of how it works. So, and I was the mayor of Ely, and I came down here and worked with superintendents trying to figure this out, even though it wasn't anything to do with Fall Lake, but it's such an issue up there. And here, every time you pass it, just take 500 off. Is that how many people, roughly 500? They're not voting for it, trust me. They don't want to spend any money that they're not going to use. So how do we as a society solve that? And I keep looking at this new mining. There's going to be a way that we can craft the formula so that this school gets more money than the other school, so we can release those people up there to support that other school. There has to be a way to get parity. And this is one of the solutions for me using when the mining comes. It's not an if, it's a when. I may not see it, but at some point we need these minerals. And maybe, and, you know, and again, I use this word a lot, trust. I mean, you have to start trusting things. When I campaigned, and I know we're running short of time, but when I campaigned, I use this as an example. In 1902, there was a Model A Ford. In 2022, there's a Model Z or T Tesla. Do we compare those two vehicles? Do we openly compare those vehicles? We don't, because they're two different vehicles. In 1902, there was copper mining. In 2022, there's copper mining. Two different processes, completely different. You can't even compare them anymore, because they are not the same. But yet, every time I hear copper mining, it can't be done, it's never been done, it's impossible. It's being done today in the Eagle Mine in Michigan. It was done in Wisconsin. It's being done all over. It's just that the narrative is controlled by people that don't want it. And I completely understand, Becky, and I get it. But at some point, society is going to have to wake up and say, we can't recycle enough copper for what's happening, what's going to happen. I mean, it's going to get, you want growth, you want housing. I sit on the environment. There's a bill that just passed to get rid of the lead water lines in communities in Minnesota. Great bill. Representative Jordan started off at 10 million, now it's 100 or I can't remember how many million, it's way up there. Again, what's the price of a life? What's this? So I'm supporting it still. I'm not against that bill. I support that bill. But when I asked Representative Jordan, I said, what are you going to replace the lines that have the lead in? What are you replacing them with? And she said, well, you know, whatever's in the bill.
Copper, I guess.
And I said, how about we replace it with copper, mined from northern Minnesota?
Yep.
And I got a boo, you know, because all the Democrats were like, that's not what we want. And I'm like, but that's the reality. This is what reality is. And if that's where it has to come from, then we all should be saying, if you're going to mine that there, you better be darn sure that every method to keep any degradation or pollution stays within your property and not outside the property. I think we can do that. I think we have corporations that can make that happen, and I'm willing to give it a try.
To Roger's point, I just want to close in saying on the mining piece, I trust that the miners in Minnesota are going to do better than what we're seeing in the Congo. And that's where we're getting our stuff from. So I think that Minnesota will lead the way. Minnesota will pay union-paying jobs. That will lead to great housing. It will reduce crime, because when you don't have jobs, you have higher crime, you have no property tax base, and it's a whole domino. We have better schools, we have better communities, we have better housing. And so I trust that Minnesota could lead the way. We have the University of Minnesota right here. We could do amazing partnerships, and we already are. And so the future, I think, is better with Minnesota at the table than not at the table, is my position. Because we aren't going backwards from technology. It's here to stay. So if we need it, and we need to get rid of lead, and we need to build buildings, we need steel, we're going to need copper, we're going to need these supplies. We're going to need trees, because you still need to build a house with wood. And so, you know, we need to have ways that we can do this. And I think Minnesota has always led the way, and it will lead the way in a new way. So it's 5, probably 05. Is there any pressing other questions?
Okay, well, thank you so much. I just want to, before you adjourn, that's my teacher side of me saying, don't leave until I tell you to. Yeah. Just I want to share out that there was a lot of really positive comments after the last time you were here, and certainly I would expect the same after this. Thank you for coming to our community. Thank you for sharing your insight and having our voice as you do a lot of difficult lifting in St. Paul. So
well, I just want to thank all of you, because you know what, this is what town halls are for. Differences of opinion, it's how we are better leaders, and that's what we said we were going to do when we ran for office is that we were going to be accessible. When it works, we'll have the senator with us too, but everybody has really busy schedules, so it doesn't always work. We try, and now we're going to be heavy in session, so we did it February, March, and April, and we'll do it again next time, and we'll be in the communities, and have a great week, and thanks for all you do.
We have one parting comment, one promotion for next week. If you enjoyed being at Two Rivers High School today, you have an opportunity next week. I'm going to turn it over for a quick promotion.
All right, well, thank you too, and thank you, Mr. Belcastro. So yeah, what's going to be happening next Sunday here is called Cabin Fever Reliever. And if you didn't know it, there is a little bitty radio station that runs by volunteer. It's a nonprofit station, and it's a big fundraiser of the year. And there are 8 acts that are going to be on the stage. It'll be a variety show. A ventriloquist, a comedian who is also called the Overpopulated One-Man Band named Steven Sokola, a performer from the Duluth Superior Symphony Orchestra who will play classical and jam a little bit. Some traditional music, some modern music, some rock music.
Eddie Ojard.
Eddie Ojard will be here playing his wonderful classical piano. He's actually tall now. He's still a kid. He's tall, and he's a student here too. So I hope everybody can come. The doors will open at 3, and the show starts at 4. And I hope people will come.
I would encourage people to go, because when you support community, community supports you.
Amen.
So thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.